Hi there. I'm Davina. My parents gave our family estate to my sister, without telling me. They signed the papers, planned the renovations, even called it a fresh start. I was never even in the room. But that wasn't the worst part. Years before, they'd quietly erased my name from everything, while I was still paying the bills, preserving the house, protecting the legacy my grandfather left behind. They thought I'd never find out, but they forgot about the hidden trust. What else did they hide from me? And how far were they willing to go? The house smelled like rosemary lamb and lemon polish, my mother's signature scent for family dinners. I stepped into the foyer of the estate I once called home, expecting nothing more than a lukewarm evening of polite conversation and awkward small talk. Instead, I walked into a performance, and I was the only one who didn't know the script. Davina, my mother smiled, setting her wine glass down. You made it. Of course I made it. I always made it. Rain or shine, New York deadlines or not, I never miss these dinners. My sister Sabrina, perched confidently at the far end of the table, barely looked up from her phone. Her husband Martin, predictably overdressed in his usual off-duty CEO getup, gave me a nod like he was greeting an employee. Dinner carried on under the weight of rehearsed pleasantries. The roast was overcooked, the tension underdone. I picked at my food, catching Sabrina's smug glances and Martin's forced chuckles. He loved to hear himself talk, mostly about real estate trends and generational wealth. Ironic. Then Dad cleared his throat and the room shifted. We've made a decision, he said, laying his fork down with ceremonial precision. It's time we plan for the future of this place. I glanced around, confused. What do you mean? My mother folded her hands like she was praying. We're transferring ownership of the estate. Sabrina and Martin will be the new title holders. I blinked, just like that. No discussion, no heads up, no mention of me. Not even a fake nod of inclusion. I wasn't just excluded, I was erased. They're planning to start a family, Dad continued. This home deserves to be filled with life again. And I guess I didn't count as life. Sabrina offered a tight smile, the kind you give someone you're firing. We're honored to carry on the Harrington legacy. Martin topped off his wine. He was already leaning back in Grandfather Emery's chair like he owned the damn place. That chair used to mean something. Emery used to sit there with his whiskey and tell me stories about the property's origins, how history had weight, how legacy should be protected, not pawned. Now that chair held a man who once suggested turning the library into a yoga studio. I forced a smile, trying to swallow the bitterness burning up my throat. Well, I said, my voice steady but hollow, congratulations. I stood slowly, my limbs heavy. I've got an early meeting. I should go. No one stopped me. No one even looked surprised. Outside, the October wind clawed at my coat as I walked to my car. The estate stood behind me, lit up like a stage set. A house full of family, yet somehow I'd never felt more like a stranger. As I gripped the steering wheel, one thought rang louder than the rest. They've already made their choice. But they forgot one thing. I was never out of the game. Sleep didn't come easy. My mind had looped that dinner scene all night, replaying the smug smiles, the calculated silence. When the morning sun slipped through my condo blinds, it didn't feel like a new day. It felt like a warning shot. Still in pajamas, I shuffled into the kitchen and started my usual ritual. Grind the beans, fill the kettle, pretend I wasn't unraveling inside. Then, ding! A real estate alert lit up my phone. I frowned. I'd set that watch years ago for anything linked to the estate's address. I almost didn't click, but I did. The screen loaded slowly. When the file opened, I nearly dropped my mug. Sabrina and Martin had filed paperwork using the estate as collateral for a personal loan, $500,000. Their names were listed under intended transferees. Intended, as in, not yet actual owners, but they were already betting the house. Heart-pounding, I yanked open my laptop and pulled up the Fayette County Property Database. There it was, a pending lien application, filed last Thursday, 3 days before the dinner. This wasn't spontaneous, it was orchestrated. My name? Absent. Not even a footnote. I sank into the chair, breathing shallowly. Did they think I'd never check? That I was too naive? Too docile? I opened my file cabinet, pulling out a worn folder marked Emery Trust. My grandfather's handwriting still sat bold across the front. He had set up a private trust when I turned 25. Not flashy, but powerful, quiet and binding. I'd been using it for years to cover estate repairs, taxes, insurance, all behind the scenes, all to keep the house intact. I'd never bragged, never held it over anyone. I did it because I believed in preserving something that mattered, and now they were trying to mortgage the very bones of it, for kitchen upgrades and God knows what else. I whispered, "Unbelievable." I wasn't angry. I was past angry. This wasn't about property. It was about being erased. I printed every document, highlighted every lie. Then I called Walter Jenkins. He picked up on the second ring, voice rough like he hadn't had coffee yet. "It's Davina," I said. "They've made their move." He didn't even ask who they were. There was a pause. Then he muttered, "It's time we talk." I hung up, then pulled an old photo off the wall. Me and Emery beneath the oak tree he planted in 1962. My hand lingered on the frame. "You trusted me with this," I whispered. "I won't let them bury what you built." By the time I met Walter at the cafe, the midday heat had lifted, replaced by a chill that crept in through the windows. We chose a corner table, away from curious ears. He opened the trust file without small talk, scanning page after page with tired eyes. When I explained about the mortgage lien, he didn't flinch, just tapped the paper with his pen. "Premature, illegal, unless they're banking on no one challenging them." I stirred my coffee, letting the silence stretch. "They are." Back home, I couldn't sit still. I pulled out my laptop and started combing through years of documents, PDFs, emails, cloud folders tied to the estate. That's when I found it. Buried in a 2018 archive, a chain titled Estate Planning, Internal Only. I clicked it open. It was a conversation between my parents, Sabrina, and a real estate attorney. At first, it was routine, zoning questions, probate concerns. Then a line from Sabrina made my fingers go cold. "Davina's priorities don't align with long-term family legacy. We should consider excluding her from future revisions for simplicity." There it was, cold, efficient, clean. No room for discussion, no questioning my intentions, just a quiet removal, years before any papers were drawn up. I sat back, numb. All this time, I thought I was just busy. Too many work trips, missed calls. I chalked it up to life. But it wasn't random. I remembered the vacations they didn't tell me about, the sudden change in tone when legal matters came up, the moments I brushed off because who wants to believe their own family is phasing them out? Now I had it. In writing. I printed the email, hands steady despite the tremor in my chest. This wasn't oversight. It was strategy. In that moment, the weight of it all settled in. They didn't forget me. They removed me. With intent, with time, with coordination. But not anymore. I placed the email in the same folder as the trust papers. Then I added something else, a copy of last year's bank statement showing every dollar I'd quietly paid toward estate taxes. Let them try to ignore that. "They didn't just forget me," I said to the empty room. "They erased me, and now they're going to remember." That night, I barely slept. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Sabrina's smug grin and my mother's quiet gaze from a dozen moments that suddenly felt full of meaning. By sunrise, the decision was made. I drove across town, past the park where I used to walk with Emery, gripping the wheel like it might break. This wasn't about confrontation. I wanted clarity, one thread of decency to hold on to. I picked up a bouquet of white tulips from a street vendor. Mom always said they reminded her of peace. Maybe she'd see it as an olive branch. She opened the door herself, still in her robe, eyes surprised but not unkind. "Davina," she said, stepping aside. "Come in." The sunroom was warm, bathed in soft light. She poured tea. I handed her the flowers and tried not to look desperate. "I just want to talk," I said, sitting across from her, "about the house, about everything." I laid it out, calmly at first. The mortgage filing, the old email, my payments, the trust. Her eyes didn't widen, her hands didn't tremble. She just stared into her teacup. Then I asked, "Mom, did you know? Did you know what they were planning?" She took a long breath and looked up at me. "Your sister is starting a family," she said. "She needs this more than you do." A crack split open inside me. Not denial, not shock, just justification. It's not about needing, Mom. It's about lying, she sighed. You've always been so sensitive. This wasn't meant to hurt you. I swallowed the ache. Then why does it feel like I was written out of my own family? Her voice softened, but not enough. We had to simplify things. You were always so busy. Sabrina stepped up. No apology, no admission, just a quiet verdict. I didn't count. I stood. Not fast, not loud, just final. I'm not here for permission. I'm not here to beg, I said. If this keeps going, I'll bring everything to light. The trust, the payments, the documents, all of it. She blinked. Her lip trembled, but she said nothing. I moved toward the door. On the hallway wall, our family photos lined the trim, smiling faces, grandkids, beach trips. But mine was missing. A deliberate space, a quiet erasure. I paused, hand on the doorknob. You taught me to protect what's mine, I whispered, even if that means protecting it from you. The silence stretched for 3 days, not even a check-in from Eleanor. Then, just after lunch on Friday, a message lit up my phone. From Dad. We need to talk about formalities. Come by tomorrow evening. Formalities. That was Dad's favorite way of softening ugly truths. I already knew what this was, a push to make it official, but I was done playing defense. The next evening, I walked into the study where I used to do my homework as a kid. Now, it smelled like lemon polish and betrayal. Gordon sat behind his desk like a CEO. Across from him, Sabrina and Martin perched on the edge of the couch, smug and comfortable. A thick manila envelope lay waiting. It's just a formality, Dad said, sliding it toward me. A simple waiver. You've always had your career. Your sister's building a family now. This will make everything smoother for the future. I opened it. A quitclaim deed. Signing it meant giving up any past, present, or future legal right to the estate. Is this a joke? I asked. No one's trying to hurt you, Eleanor added from the doorway. We're just being practical. My gaze swept the room. 4 people pretending this was fairness. Sabrina wouldn't even meet my eyes. You're not asking me to sign a paper? I said, voice low but sharp. You're asking me to vanish. Martin chuckled. Oh, come on. Don't make this bigger than it is. I put the pen down. No. Gordon leaned forward. Davina, I've paid property taxes on this house for nearly a decade, out of my own pocket, from a trust you didn't even know existed. And now you want me to walk away so Sabrina can slap her name on a deed she didn't earn? Sabrina scoffed. You were never around. I cut her off. And yet I was the only one keeping the lights on. I looked at Dad. You spent years pretending I didn't care, but you were never paying attention. Martin muttered under his breath. Jesus, she's dramatic. I stopped at the door, turned slowly, and met his eyes. Keep pushing, I said, and I'll show you what dramatic really looks like. 2 days later, I parked in front of the estate with no announcement, no agenda, just a need to collect the last of my things. No one was supposed to be home. The plan was to be invisible. I entered through the side door, letting the scent of lemon oil and aged wood guide me down the hall. My feet led me instinctively to Granddad's old study. The room had been quiet since his funeral, still as a photograph. I bent to grab a small stack of books I'd left in the corner, but something poking out from beneath a side table caught my eye. Blueprints, rolled tight, bound in a rubber band. I pulled them free, expecting maybe renovations for the kitchen or roof. But what I saw knocked the breath from my chest. Plans to gut the eastern wing, where Emery's library stood. His sanctuary, the shelves he carved by hand, the stained glass skylight he designed for moonlight reading. Gone. To make way for a gym and a media lounge, scrawled in Sharpie on the margins. I sank into his old armchair, the blueprints shaking in my lap. They weren't just stealing the estate. They were erasing its soul. I called Walter. They're planning demolition, I said. The library, Emery's library. There was a pause on the line, then his voice, low and deliberate. If they file for demolition, it triggers a legal review. The trust will red flag the title. Finally, a line in the sand. I hung up, already opening my laptop. First, I emailed the local historical society, attaching photos of the library's craftsmanship. Then I messaged Rachel Feldman, an old friend from college, now a reporter for the Herald. Let them try to build their fantasy house on bones. I gathered the trust documents, stacked them with the demolition plans, and slipped them into my bag. As I stepped outside, the sun dipped low over the trees. Martin was coming up the driveway, dressed like he owned the place. He looked startled. "Didn't expect you here today," I smiled. "I know, that's the fun part." By Saturday afternoon, the estate had been staged like a showroom. Hors d'oeuvres circled on trays, soft jazz played from corner speakers, and local donors mingled with board members of the Preservation Society. At the center of it all stood Martin, beaming like he was hosting a charity gala, not a hostile takeover. I stayed near the back, arms crossed, watching him flash his polished grin and say, "We're reimagining Oak Ridge, making it fit the times." He went on about open floor plans, decluttering the past, and legacy stewardship. He even called himself the estate manager. That was the final straw. I stepped forward, slow and certain. "You're not the manager. You don't hold any legal authority here." The room hushed. Martin laughed awkwardly. "Davina, let's not—" "No," I cut in. "Let's." I pulled a folder from my tote and held it up. "These are trust documents. Your name isn't anywhere on them. You have no deed, no legal appointment. You're not managing anything. You're playing pretend." Gasps broke around us like shattered glass. Sabrina went pale. My father stiffened. Martin tried to speak again, but his voice cracked. The meeting fell apart within minutes. Donors left quietly. The society's representative promised to review everything. I stepped outside for air, heart pounding, when I heard the door open behind me. It was Eleanor. Her face was tight, eyes unreadable. "You went too far," she said. "This could have stayed in the family." I turned slowly, my voice low. "You already chose which part of the family mattered." I reached into my coat pocket and pulled out an envelope. "Found this in your desk, sealed, unopened." She froze. I unfolded the letter, my fingers trembling. Emery's handwriting, bold and unmistakable. "If you're reading this, Davina," it began, "they've tried to rewrite what we built, protect Oak Ridge. You were always the one who understood." I looked at her. "You kept this from me." She didn't deny it. "Because I knew once it started, it would never stop. You'd burn every bridge." "No," I said. "You burned them when you decided silence was safer than standing up for what was right." Sabrina stepped out then, already on the defense. "You're twisting things." "No," I said again, louder this time. "I'm revealing them." And I walked away, Emery's letter in one hand, the truth in the other. 2 days after the explosion at the estate gathering, I arranged a formal meeting at Walter Jenkins' office. Neutral ground, hardwood floors, dusty bookshelves, a fireplace nobody ever lit. They arrived together, Gordon, Eleanor, Sabrina, Martin, seated across from me like it was a business negotiation. They still thought I was bluffing. Walter adjusted his glasses, glanced at me, then opened the leather-bound file I handed him. "This," he said, voice steady, "is the Harrington Legacy Trust, executed and witnessed by Emery himself." He flipped a page. "Davina Harrington is the sole trustee and beneficiary of the estate known as Oak Ridge. All decisions regarding its preservation, use, or transfer rest solely with her." The room went silent. Walter's voice cut through it again. "Any attempt to mortgage, demolish, or reallocate ownership, without her explicit consent, is void." Gordon's jaw clenched. Sabrina's mouth dropped open. Martin leaned forward like he could talk his way around it. Then came the second blow. "I must also disclose," Walter said slowly, "that shortly after Emery's passing, Gordon asked me to keep this trust document quiet. He didn't want it filed, said he needed time to restructure the family's path forward." Eleanor gasped. "You said you were protecting us." "I was protecting your plan," Walter corrected, "not the law, and certainly not Emery's wishes." Sabrina turned to Gordon, eyes sharp. "You told me she was out, that there was nothing left to fight for." Martin stood up. "This changes nothing. It changes everything," I said, rising to my feet. "You've all treated me like a placeholder, a burden, but I've been the one holding this place up for years." I laid out my terms, voice even. "No demolition, no remodel. You're out of this house permanently. I'm applying for historical status. Oak Ridge will be protected, legally and publicly." Gordon tried to speak again. Walter cut him off. You've lost all authority here. The trust stands. Sabrina stormed out, muttering obscenities under her breath. Martin followed, throwing one last glare my way. Eleanor didn't move. Her eyes were glassy, mouth closed. But still, she said nothing. I crossed the room and placed Emery's letter on the fireplace mantel, right beneath his portrait. He trusted me, and I kept that promise. The next morning, I woke to the hush of Oak Ridge. No footsteps upstairs, no whispers in the hallway, just the soft creak of wood settling, the sound of the house breathing again. For the first time, I felt it was breathing with me. The sun spilled through the library skylight, catching dust motes in golden streams. I sat beneath it, coffee warming my hands, Emery's letter resting beside me on the old armchair. He built this place with patience and vision. I had fought to keep it with truth. It hadn't been about revenge, not really. It was about memory, honor, lineage. Word of what happened had already begun to spread. Gordon had quietly stepped down from his position on the legal board, citing personal matters. His silence in the papers spoke louder than any denial. Sabrina and Martin sold their condo in the city and moved out of state. No farewell, no explanation. But people whispered. They always do. I never corrected the stories. I didn't need to. Eleanor sent me a handwritten note. Short, slanted, heavy with unsaid things. You were right. I just wasn't strong enough to stand beside you. There was no apology. But there was recognition. And for now, that would do. Oak Ridge was declared a historical landmark 3 weeks later. I hosted an open house with the local history society. The town showed up. So did Walter. So did old neighbors who remembered Emery's gardening lectures or his annual 4th of July stories. One woman told me, he'd be proud of what you've done. That night, I stood alone outside beneath the oak tree, the same one Emery planted the day my mother was born. I looked up through the branches, felt the weight of what had been saved, not just wood and walls, but truth. I wasn't healed, not completely, but I wasn't invisible anymore. Back inside, I closed the library doors, the letter still on the mantel beside Emery's photo. I whispered to both. Some people inherit legacy, others protect it. I was never meant to inherit Oak Ridge. I was meant to fight for it. Sometimes the people you love most will ask you to shrink yourself, quiet your voice, doubt your worth, for the sake of keeping peace. But silence isn't peace, and loyalty shouldn't come at the cost of your dignity. What I learned from this fight wasn't just about legal rights or family property. It was about remembering who I am, without their permission. Legacy isn't just what's handed down to you. Sometimes it's what you refuse to let go of. And maybe, just maybe, the fiercest kind of love is the kind that protects what others are too afraid to. So let me ask you, have you ever had to stand your ground when everyone expected you to stay quiet? Have you ever protected something, an idea, a place, a part of yourself, because no one else would? I'd love to hear your story. Drop a comment below and let me know where you're watching from, or just type 1 if this story resonated with you in any way. And hey, if it didn't, that's okay too. Tell me why. I'm here to listen, not just speak. If this video moved you, inspired you, or even made you think a little deeper, go ahead and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss the next story. Your support helps us keep telling real human stories that matter. Thank you for being here.
Take this and get out of here, my mother-in-law yelled as she handed me the divorce papers. She thinks I'm just a housewife and has become really aggressive lately. I actually felt sorry for her. She's been fooled by my husband's lies. I took the papers, trying not to laugh, and left the house. I'm curious to see what happens next. Honestly, I'm kind of excited. Hi, I'm Laura, and I'm 27 years old. I started an online education business to help people learn skills so they can work from home. That's right. I'm the CEO. My team handles most of the work now, and I work at my own pace from home. I married Adam 3 years ago. He tells everyone he has a high-level job at a big company, but in reality, he's a contract worker doing small tasks. He also tells people I'm just a housewife. He says, even though she earns money, she doesn't do much, so it's the same as being a housewife. At home, He treats me like I don't work at all. He doesn't help with chores, even though I'm working too. But he doesn't get that. He once told me, "Out of respect for your husband, please forgive my little lie." Because of his lies, his mom treats me badly. She always says things like, "Why did our talented son marry someone without a job?" She shows up at our house without warning and puts me down. I've tried to explain that I work and do chores, but she just laughs and says things like, "You're just lounging around all day." Or, "If you're going to lie, at least make it believable." I've talked to Adam about her surprise visits, but he just shrugs and says, "Don't take it seriously. She's just an old lady with too much time." He only gives $600 for our household each month and keeps the rest for himself. I pay the rent and add about $4,600 more, but we still struggle because he spends too much. Even though I'm the one holding everything together, he keeps lying to others, saying I don't work. He also doesn't stand up for me when his mom insults me. Even so, I haven't been able to make the final decision to divorce him because Adam once helped me. We were college classmates. Back then, I was bullied by a girl named Joyce. She hated that people thought I was better than her, even though I didn't try to show off. I think it's normal for someone who studies hard to be praised, but Joyce didn't see it that way. Because of her childish bullying, there was a time I didn't even want to go to college. But I managed to graduate thanks to Adam's support. He also helped me start my online school business when I was struggling with stress and overwork at my first job after college. He told me, "Why not do work that uses your strengths? You can do well on your own." Thanks to him, I now work freely, without being tied to an office or a schedule. I became who I am today because of Adam's support. That's why I've been trying to put up with him. I've thought about getting a divorce, but I wasn't sure if I could really go through with it. Then one day, I saw something shocking on social media. There was a post that said, "My amazing boyfriend bought me the latest designer bag," along with a photo of the bag and a man's hand. The man was wearing a luxury watch, the same limited edition model I gave Adam. The person who posted it? I couldn't believe it. It looked like Joyce. We're not friends on social media, but because we have many mutual friends, her posts sometimes pop up in my feed. When I looked at more of her posts, I saw several photos that hinted she was with Adam. She definitely knows Adam and I are married. She's probably seen my posts too. Yet she still shared those photos. Was she trying to provoke me? Or just being careless? Either way, it felt like she was looking down on me. I had been thankful to Adam for everything he'd done, and I tried to be patient. But cheating? That was too much. I couldn't forgive that. That moment, I finally made up my mind. I contacted a private investigator to check on Adam. It didn't take long. They found clear proof. Adam had told me he was going to business school to become a full-time employee. But that was a lie. He wasn't attending any school. He was spending his time and my money with Joyce. I was shocked, but I didn't feel angry. I mostly felt disappointed and honestly relieved. I saw a way out. I secretly signed a lease for my own apartment and started moving my stuff bit by bit, getting ready to leave. Then, right before I was fully prepared, Adam said happily, "I've been chosen to go to a company training camp next week. I'll be gone for a week." I knew the truth. He was planning a fancy trip with Joyce. Just another one of his lies. Still, he made it sound believable. Typical Adam. He's good at making things sound real. I calmly listened as Adam talked excitedly about how great the training camp would be. Time passed, and he happily left for his so-called work trip. I was just about to finish packing and complete my divorce plans when the doorbell rang. It was my mother-in-law, once again showing up without warning. "Look, Laura," she said through the intercom. "Adam gave me this as a present." She walked right in, proudly showing off the exact same luxury handbag I saw in Joyce's social media post. "This is the newest model," she bragged. "He gave it to me as thanks for always helping out." "So, what has Adam given you lately, Laura?" I had no choice but to answer. "Actually nothing." She laughed and said, "Of course not. You're living off Adam's money without doing anything. You don't deserve any gifts." She went on, happily talking about all the new appliances Adam bought her and how he paid for house renovations, all using the money I was putting into our household. Turns out, my money was being used on her and Joyce. But thankfully, I keep most of my income separate, so it didn't hurt me too much. I tried to ignore her, but she didn't like that. "Laura, are you even listening?" she snapped. I replied without thinking. "What do you mean?" Her face turned bright red. "How rude of you to ignore me," she shouted. Then, to my surprise, she pulled out a set of divorce papers from her bag, already filled out. "I never liked you. You've been living off Adam's money while doing nothing. What kind of wife are you? You should be ashamed," she yelled, throwing a pen at me. "Sign this and divorce Adam right now. We don't need you. In fact, without you, we'll save money," she added, with a smug look. It was clear she'd been trying to get Adam to divorce me for a while. She probably came over just to pick a fight and get me to agree. I didn't expect her to bring the papers herself, though. "Hurry up and sign. Then get out," she demanded. I actually felt sorry for her. She didn't realize Adam had been lying to her all along, and now she was about to lose her golden goose. I quietly signed the papers, trying not to laugh. Then I packed my things and said, "Thanks for everything. I'll turn in these papers myself." I left the house while she stood there shocked, probably thinking I would beg her to let me stay. Instead, I walked out without looking back. One less problem in my life. I went straight to City Hall and filed the divorce papers, happily humming to myself. Then I moved into the luxury apartment I had secretly rented, worth $4 million. Adam and his mother never knew about it. Living alone felt amazing. No more dealing with Adam or his mother. I finally had time to focus on myself, and soon after, I started my own personal business. I was enjoying my new single life, but sadly, it didn't last long. Adam had come back from his trip with Joyce, the one he pretended was a work training camp. When he got home and realized I wasn't there, he called me. "Laura, where the hell are you? Whatever happened, just come back right now." "Why should I come back?" I said. "Your mom told me to leave, so I did what she wanted." "My mom? I told you to ignore her. Just come back. No more arguing." "No," I said. "I'm not coming back. We're divorced now. I'm not returning to a house that legally belongs to someone else." "What divorce? What are you talking about?" "Your mother gave me the divorce papers. I signed them and filed them at City Hall the day you left. It's already done. That divorce doesn't count. Just come back. There's only $600 left in our account. I can't live on that." "I'm not coming back," I said. "We're divorced. Your money problems aren't my concern anymore. If you want to talk in the future, go through my lawyer. The contact info is in my desk drawer." Then I hung up and turned off my phone. Adam kept trying to get me to come home, but I was curious to see what would happen next. A few days later, Adam's lawyer contacted me, asking for a formal meeting. When I arrived at the lawyer's office, I was surprised to see his mother there too. She glanced at the bag I was carrying and muttered, "That bag," she had noticed mine was more expensive than the one she had shown off before. "You've got good taste, mother," I said. "When you have money, it's nice to have something fancy. But anyway, why are you here?" She looked down without answering. Then Adam spoke up, looking ashamed. "My mom knows everything now, that I'm only a contract worker, that you run your own company, and that you were paying most of the household bills." He continued, "She gave you the divorce papers without my permission. I was wrong for lying. I regret it. I won't let her insult you anymore. Please come back and cancel the divorce." He sounded sorry, but it didn't feel real. I could tell he still didn't think he had done anything wrong. He just blamed everything on his mom. "I'm sorry," I said. "I'm not coming back." When I refused, Adam slammed the desk. "It's thanks to me that you became a CEO. Don't you feel any gratitude? You're divorcing me for selfish reasons, so I want $2 million in compensation." That was his true self. The Adam I once loved was gone. All I saw now was a sad man chasing money. "Adam, stop it." His mother tried to calm him down, but he wasn't listening. The lawyer looked uncomfortable as things got tense. When I got back home, Laura was gone. She had taken all her things and disappeared. The divorce papers were filled out without my permission by my mother, Adam said, pointing at me. Laura is the one who left her duties as a wife. She hurt both me and my mother emotionally. He looked at the lawyer, hoping for support. But the lawyer just sighed and pulled out a document. Laura has agreed to divorce quietly and not take this any further, the lawyer said tiredly. Adam looked shocked and couldn't say a word when he saw what the document contained. It clearly showed his affair with Joyce, including photos of him going in and out of hotels with her. "I'm thankful for your support in the past when I started the company," I said, "but I've repaid that debt. You used my money to live a fancy life, spoil your mother, and spend time with your girlfriend." I looked at him. I was surprised it was Joyce. "How was your nice trip with the woman who bullied me in college?" Adam looked pale and frozen, unable to speak. His mother, who had no idea about the affair, suddenly started shouting. "What is this? What does all this mean?" I ignored her and kept talking to Adam. "If we finalize the divorce, I won't ask you for any damages or for the money you wasted. But I also won't give you anything. There will be no splitting of assets." His mother jumped in, upset. "That's not fair, Laura. I already started fixing up our family home. I thought Adam was handling the money. I even bought new furniture and appliances. He can't support himself like this. Please don't go through with the divorce. Or at least help us with money." Her request was so unreasonable that even the lawyer was shocked. He took a deep breath. "Madam, that's a bold request, or rather thoughtless. You have no right to interfere. Please be quiet." Then he looked at Adam and said, "What do you want to do? If you keep pushing, we'll take legal action and ask for the money you wasted on your affair. And we'll also send this evidence to your company." I added, "If your job finds out about this, it might cost you more than just your reputation." Adam slumped in his chair. "I guess I have no choice. I'll agree to the divorce," he said in a weak voice. Adam, who was only a contract worker, loved pretending he was part of a big company. He used my money for luxury and cheated on me, and now risked losing his job if his secret got out. He agreed to the divorce only to protect his image. "What about the home renovations? And the credit card bill is due," his mother asked, panicking. But Adam didn't answer. He stood up, walked out slowly, and left the lawyer's office. His mother ran after him. I stared at the door they left through, deep in thought. I sent the proof of Adam's affair to Joyce and asked her to pay for the damage she caused. "Oops, you caught me. But Adam is mine now. I'll pay whatever it costs. He's a top guy at a big company," Joyce said, laughing without a bit of shame. Turns out, Adam had lied to Joyce too. He told our old college friends that I was the CEO, but Joyce didn't know that. When I explained the truth to her, the proud look on her face disappeared. At first, she didn't believe me. But once she realized I was telling the truth, she said, "Wait, that means Adam tricked me. I'm the real victim here. You can't go after me." But facts are facts. She still had an affair with a married man. "If you don't pay, I'll send all this proof to your job and your family," I told her. She paid the damages right away. My friends later told me that Joyce had a habit of getting involved with married men, and this wasn't the first time she had to pay someone. But what happens to her now is none of my business. Adam still sends me messages, asking for another chance. He couldn't afford rent and had to move back in with his family. He and his mother had a hard time adjusting to a simpler lifestyle. On top of their old debts, they borrowed more money and quickly fell into a financial mess. Adam was exhausted from working full-time plus part-time jobs, and people said he kept making mistakes at work. One day, he sent me a message that made me laugh. "I finally understand how much I need you, Laura. I won't mess up again. Let's support each other from now on." But during our marriage, I never felt any support from him. So, to say we should support each other now? That made no sense. I had my lawyer warn him that if he contacted me again, we'd send the affair evidence to his company. After that, the messages stopped. Now, I'm working happily and growing my business. I have no plans to remarry for a while. I just want to enjoy my single life. I was shocked to hear such cold words. It made me question if she had any kindness left in her heart. Let me take you back 21 years. My name is Emma, and I have a sister named Rachel. We lost our parents in a tragic accident shortly after I was born. I never got to know them. I've only seen their faces in old photos. After our parents passed away, our grandparents, our mother's parents, took us in. They gave us lots of love and raised us with care. But Rachel was never happy being raised by them. By the time she got to junior high, Rachel became rebellious and difficult. Our grandparents had to apologize to others again and again because of her behavior. She didn't appreciate their kindness and even told them not to come to her school events ever again. Eventually, after she finished college, Rachel left home without saying thank you. She even took money from our grandfather and walked away like it meant nothing. I, on the other hand, felt I should repay our grandparents, not just for what they did for me, but for Rachel too. After I graduated from college, I chose to stay with them. I looked for a local job, so I could be close and take care of them in return for all they had done. Since Rachel left, many years passed. Life became peaceful with just me and our grandparents. But then, that peace was suddenly broken. Grandma was diagnosed with cancer. The doctors said she didn't have much time left. Hearing that, I couldn't stop crying. But Grandma gently comforted me. "Emma, you're so kind. Your tears mean a lot to me," she said. "But I've lived a long life." She had always been so kind to both Rachel and me. Hearing her words gave me strength. I promised myself I'd take care of her until the very end. Even though Rachel had cut us off, I felt she should know about Grandma's illness. I emailed her, hoping she would at least reply, maybe even come visit. But there was nothing. No message, no visit. Grandma's health got worse quickly. I knew the end was near. Still, I stayed strong in front of her, smiling and caring for her with Grandpa, even though it hurt inside. Even though Rachel ignored us, I kept sending her emails every day. Grandma still loved her deeply, no matter what. I hoped Rachel would show up, so Grandma could see her again, just once. Then one day, after many silent days, the doorbell rang. I opened the door, and there stood Rachel. I was surprised, and beside her was a man I didn't recognize. He was flashy and loud, clearly not someone we knew. Noticing my confused face, Rachel pointed at him with an annoyed look and said, bluntly, "I got married." "This is my husband, Tyler," Rachel said with a short greeting. Then, without waiting for an invitation, she and Tyler walked right into the house like they owned it. Grandpa was relaxing in the living room when he saw Rachel after so many years. He looked shocked and said, "Rachel, you're back." Rachel sat down on the sofa and said in a rude tone, "So, how much is Grandma's inheritance?" I was so surprised I couldn't stay quiet. I had thought she came to see Grandma, but she clearly only cared about the money. "How much is it exactly?" Rachel asked again. Tyler, sitting next to her, looked at Grandpa and said, "Hey, Grandpa, I'm thirsty," clearly expecting someone to serve him. I was disgusted by how selfish they both were. I shook my head and said, "I don't know how much it is. And besides, it's rude to talk about inheritance when Grandma is still alive and fighting for her life." Rachel just scoffed and said, "Come on, Emma. You know Grandma is rich. If we don't get things sorted while she's alive, we might not get anything at all." It was true. Grandma came from a well-known and wealthy family. Her father, our great-grandfather, had run a successful business. Even though Grandma didn't take over the company, she learned a lot about business from a young age. After she married Grandpa, they started a company together and built a fortune worth millions. Now, Rachel and Tyler were after that fortune. "I can't believe this. You came back just for the money?" I asked. "Of course," Rachel replied without shame. "And why not? I'm the favorite grandchild. It's only fair that they thank me by giving me some of that money. Oh, and I'm pregnant. If Grandma dies soon, we'll inherit everything, and her great-grandchild will too. She'd be happy about that, right?" "What are you saying?" "Grandma is right in the next room," I said. The old study room had been turned into a care room for Grandma, since she couldn't move around easily anymore. She could probably hear everything we were saying. I looked at Rachel and said firmly, "Stop talking about money. That's enough." But Rachel just laughed in a mean way and shouted even louder, Hey, Grandma, can you hear me? Just go already so I can get the inheritance. That was the final straw. Get out, I yelled, grabbing Rachel and Tyler by their arms. With all my strength, I dragged them to the door and threw them out. They barely resisted. Don't ever come back to this house again, I shouted. You're being selfish. I only came because you told me to, Rachel mocked. I was so angry, I could feel steam coming off my head. I shouted back, if you're going to say such awful things to Grandma and Grandpa, I wish you had never come. You forgot all the kindness they showed you and spoke to them so cruelly. You're the worst. I slammed the door shut and started crying in frustration. Just then, Grandpa came over holding some juice. He had gone to get it after Tyler asked for a drink. He saw me crying and asked gently, "Are you okay?" I told him everything Rachel and Tyler had said and done. Grandpa stood quietly for a moment, thinking. Then he gave me a warm smile and said, "Don't worry. Grandpa will take care of it." He handed me the juice and walked away calmly. Time passed, and after a long fight with her illness, Grandma peacefully passed away. Seeing her resting with a calm expression made me feel a little better. It was like she was finally free from the pain of cancer. I gently spoke to her as she lay still. You did your best, Grandma. Thank you for everything. After the funeral, I returned home and found Rachel and Tyler waiting for me. I had emailed them about Grandma's passing, but they didn't come to the funeral. When I asked Rachel why they showed up now, she replied just as I expected. We came to talk about the money, of course. We need to discuss Grandma's will. We went inside. I didn't feel right talking about money so soon after Grandma's death, but Rachel and Tyler clearly didn't care. They just wanted to get their hands on the inheritance as soon as possible. With a big smile, Rachel pulled a paper out of an envelope. Look at this. It's Grandma's will, she said proudly. I gasped. There it was, handwritten in what looked like Grandma's writing. But what shocked me most was the content. The will said that everything, including the company, would go to Rachel. I couldn't believe it. On the day Rachel visited, Grandma had heard her hurtful words and cried alone in her room. I still remembered Grandma saying in a sad voice, "Rachel only sees me as someone who has money." And yet this will gave everything to Rachel? I started to shake and quietly said, "Is this some kind of joke?" Tyler laughed and said, "Judging by your face, you were after the inheritance too, weren't you? This is funny. I don't care about the inheritance," I said firmly. I just can't believe Grandma would write something like this. I stared at the will, unable to believe what I was seeing. Tyler mocked me, saying, "Don't act like you're so perfect." Rachel added with a smirk, "She's always been like this. Last time we were kicked out, but now this house, Grandma's company, and everything else will be mine. So, it's your turn to leave. Grandpa can't stay here either, so take him and go." As she said that, she grabbed my arm and started pulling me toward the door. I was filled with anger. When Grandma was still alive and feeling lonely, Rachel didn't even visit. Then, when she finally did come, she said she hoped Grandma would pass away quickly. And now she wanted to take everything for herself? I couldn't take it anymore. "Stop it," I shouted. Just then the doorbell rang. Rachel was startled and loosened her grip. I pulled away and looked toward the door. Through the frosted glass, I saw someone standing there. When I opened the door, I saw Mr. Eric, the lawyer. He had visited many times before to help with legal matters for Grandma and Grandpa's company. "Sorry I'm late," Mr. Eric said as he stepped in. Grandpa, who had been making coffee, greeted him warmly.
"We've been waiting," Grandpa said.
"Let's talk about the will." But Rachel cut in, holding up the will she brought. "There's nothing to talk about. It's written right here. I get everything, including the company and Grandma's money. The money has already been deposited, and I've even withdrawn some of it." She looked very proud of herself. But Grandpa stayed calm and smiled gently. "There's still something we need to talk about, Rachel," he said. "You no longer have the right to inherit anything." "What?" Rachel looked shocked, and honestly, I was confused too. That's when Mr. Eric took out a USB drive and plugged it into his laptop. He placed it on the small cabinet near the door. Then a voice recording started to play. It was Grandma's voice, along with Rachel's and Tyler's. "Come on, hurry up and write the will, Grandma," Rachel said on the recording. "Write that you're leaving everything to us. If you don't, things will get messy."
Got it.
As the recording played, it became clear that Rachel and Tyler had pressured Grandma into writing the will. Mr. Eric stopped the recording and explained, "A will made under pressure or threats is not valid. According to the law, this will has no legal value." He pointed directly at the will Rachel was holding. Still shocked, I asked, "When did you prepare all of this?" Grandpa gently explained, "While you were out, Rachel and Tyler came here and forced Grandma to write that will. But we were ready. I was the one who set up the voice recorder," Grandpa said with a calm smile. Rachel began to panic and mumbled, "But Grandma had me sign some documents too." Grandpa chuckled. "Rachel, you really don't understand anything, do you? Did you even read the fine print? What you signed wasn't part of a will, it was a credit card loan application." Grandma was shocked at how easily you signed it. "What?" Rachel gasped. "Yes," Grandpa said calmly. "The $230,000 you took out from the bank? That's debt, not inheritance." Rachel quickly pulled out her phone and checked her bank account. "I don't believe this. My account is in the negative," she muttered, her face turning pale. Tyler wasn't any better. "What do you mean debt? What are we going to do?" he said in a panic. "I thought we were getting the inheritance. I already took out loans for a new house and car. This has to be a joke." "Calm down, Tyler," Mr. Eric said. Rachel turned to him in desperation. "Mr. Eric, I'm Grandma's granddaughter. Even if the inheritance isn't much, I should still get something, right?" Mr. Eric replied, "That's exactly what I came here to talk about." He pulled out a white envelope. "This is Grandma's real will, legally written and notarized. I'll read it now." Rachel and Tyler pressed their hands together like they were praying. But the will didn't mention Rachel at all. The company was left to Grandpa. Everything else, money and property, was to be shared between Grandpa and me. Rachel cried out, "Why can't we fix this? Can't we change it somehow?" But Mr. Eric answered firmly, "There's nothing that can be done. Legally, you had the right to inherit, but you lost that right by threatening and pressuring Grandma." Rachel looked at Grandpa. "Can't we do something?" Grandpa gave her a dry smile and said, "No, there's nothing you can do. You heartless old man." Rachel shouted before storming out of the house alone. Tyler, who was left behind, quickly ran after her. "Wait for me," he called. He looked so pitiful. Later, I heard that Rachel and Tyler had a baby. But because of all the debt they had taken on, they couldn't afford to take proper time off and had to go back to work right away. They had expected to get a big inheritance before Grandma passed away and spent money they didn't have. In the end, they had to sell the expensive house and luxury car they had bought on loans. All that was left was a mountain of debt and the struggle of paying it back. Eventually, they came to Grandpa begging for help, but he refused. The stress from their money problems affected their relationship, and in the end, Rachel and Tyler got divorced. I heard that Tyler went back to live with his parents, and Rachel tried to return to this house, but I firmly told her no. "This house belongs to me," I said. "Grandma left it to me, and I won't let you live here without my permission." There were even rumors that Rachel was now homeless and living under a bridge because she had no money. But honestly, I don't know where she is or how she's really doing. She asked me for help many times, but I kept saying no. I couldn't afford to support her, and I didn't want to. The truth is, I had already donated the inheritance I got from Grandma to a children's home. Since Rachel and I lost our parents when we were very young, I always felt a deep connection to orphans. If our grandparents hadn't taken us in, we might have ended up in a place like that. So, I wanted to give back and help kids in that situation have a better life. When Rachel asked for help, I told her about the donation. She was shocked and said, "You should help your own family first." But remembering how she treated our grandparents, I had no reason or desire to help her.
Time passed.
I got married and had children. Grandpa was happy to see me doing well. He passed away peacefully, without pain. Losing him left a hole in my heart. But thanks to my loving husband and family, I was able to move forward. Now, I carry on my grandparents' legacy. I run the company they started and raise my children with love and care. Life isn't always easy, but I try to live in a way that would make them proud, watching over me from heaven. My name's Maria, and I used to think I had everything sorted: a great job as the head of marketing, a loving husband named Adam, and a comfortable life. I was paying off our mortgage with my own salary, feeling pretty proud of being financially independent. Family was also a big part of our lives. Adam had a younger brother, Kevin, and their mom, Lauren, was always around. Their dad had passed away years ago, so the boys made sure to look after her. I found it really sweet, and it made me love Adam even more seeing how he cared for his family. At first, Lauren seemed to like me. We'd chat during family gatherings, usually over coffee, and she always asked about my job. "Marketing, huh?" she'd say with a nod. "Sounds important." It felt nice to have her approval. I wanted to fit in with Adam's family and be a part of their close group. Our first few years of marriage were full of weekend barbecues, holiday dinners, and spontaneous game nights with the extended family. I remember one Thanksgiving when we were all squeezed around Lauren's dining table, laughing and talking over each other. "Pass the gravy, will you?" Adam's uncle shouted from the end of the table. "You've had enough gravy, old man," Lauren replied with a grin as she handed him the gravy boat. I looked around at all the familiar faces, feeling like I really belonged. This was my family now, too. But things started to change during a New Year's Eve party at Lauren's house. I was in the kitchen, refilling my glass of wine, when I overheard Lauren talking to Adam and Kevin in the living room. "Did you see what Joyce is wearing?" Lauren snickered. "That dress must have cost $10. I froze, my hand on the wine bottle. Joyce was Adam's cousin, a single mom who was struggling to make ends meet. "I'm just saying," Lauren continued, her voice full of disdain. "Some people should know their place. Don't try to keep up with the big boys if you can't." I felt my face heat up from secondhand embarrassment. This wasn't the kind, welcoming family I thought I knew. I peeked around the corner and saw Lauren leaning in toward her sons, all of them giggling like kids. Over time, I couldn't shake the uneasy feeling I had around Lauren. What I first thought was just harmless teasing started to feel more like real meanness. And it wasn't just Joyce she picked on. At every family gathering, Lauren would whisper with Adam and Kevin, laughing quietly and glancing around the room at different relatives or friends before bursting into quiet laughter. One Easter Friday, I had enough. Lauren was in the living room with Adam and Kevin right beside her, like loyal followers. "Did you see Olivia's new car?" Lauren said in a low voice, just loud enough to hear. "She probably got it from one of those cheap places. She'll be paying for it forever." Before I knew it, I was on my feet, walking toward them. "Hey," I said, my voice sharper than I meant. "Don't you think that's a bit much? Olivia could probably hear you." The room went silent. Lauren's eyes narrowed as she looked at me. Well, she said sarcastically, "looks like we've upset your delicate feelings, Maria." Adam and Kevin exchanged awkward looks. "I just think it's rude," I said, my heart racing. "Why do you always have to tear people down?" Lauren's fake smile vanished. "If you don't like it, you don't have to listen. Why don't you go sit somewhere else?" It felt like a slap. I looked at Adam, hoping he'd support me, but he just stared at the floor. "Fine," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "I will." From that day, family gatherings were miserable. I'd sit alone, nursing a drink while Adam stayed glued to his mother's side. He'd give me an apologetic look once in a while, but never came to sit with me. One night, after a particularly bad dinner, I asked him, "Why don't you ever stand up to her?" Adam sighed and ran his hand through his hair. "She's my mom, Maria. What do you expect me to do? I want you to tell her she's being cruel. I want you to have my back." But he never did. Slowly, I started making excuses not to go to family events, work emergencies, headaches, anything to avoid the cold stares and quiet insults. Then things just got worse. Just when I thought things couldn't get more complicated, life surprised me again. I was pregnant. I stared at the little plastic stick in the bathroom, my heart racing. 3 pink lines, clear as day. Adam, I called out, my voice shaky. Can you come here? He came to the door, looking worried. What's wrong? He asked. Without saying a word, I handed him the test. His eyes widened as he looked at it, and then he pulled me into a hug. For a moment, I thought maybe everything would be okay, that this baby might bring us closer and fix the growing distance between us. But life had other plans. The pregnancy was tough from the start. I was constantly nauseous, dizzy, and always worried about the risk of a miscarriage. My doctor put me on bed rest, so I had to work from home. As the weeks went by, my health got worse. My eyesight started to fail, a rare complication. The doctor said it might be temporary, but it could also be permanent. I could barely see my laptop, and with a heavy heart, I had to quit my job. I needed Adam more than ever, but he seemed to be pulling away. He started coming home late, saying he had extra work or drinks with colleagues. Most nights, I fell asleep alone, sometimes waking up in the middle of the night to hear the front door closing. The day of my C-section came faster than I expected. My eyesight had gotten so bad that the doctors insisted on the surgery. Natural birth was too risky. Lying on the cold operating table, I was a mix of excitement and fear. Where's Adam? I asked the nurse, my voice shaking. She gave me a kind smile. Your husband's in the waiting room. He said he'd rather stay there. The surgery went well, and soon I heard the sweetest sound, my son's first cry. They placed him on my chest, and I felt a love so strong, it took my breath away. Later, in the recovery room, Adam finally showed up. His face was full of discomfort and frustration. Look, Maria, he said, I need to say something. This whole thing, it's not right. I blinked, confused. What do you mean? He ran his hand through his hair, clearly frustrated. Normal women give birth on their own, without all this surgery stuff. And men, we're not supposed to be here for this. We should meet our wives and kids at home, like in the old days. His words hit me like a punch in the gut. I couldn't risk it, I started to say, but Adam cut me off. Save it. I'm going home. This place creeps me out. The next few weeks were a blur of sleepless nights and endless feedings. Adam was rarely home, and when he was, he didn't help with our son. Instead, he complained constantly. Can't you shut him up? He'd snap when our baby cried in the middle of the night. I'm trying, I'd say, exhausted. He's teething, Adam. It hurts him. But Adam had no patience. All you do is focus on the kid. What about me? What about our sex life? I'd just stare at him in disbelief. I was running on 3 hours of sleep, still recovering from surgery, and he was worried about sex. As the weeks turned into months, Adam grew more frustrated. One evening, while I was trying to calm our fussy 5-month-old, he dropped a bombshell. You need to go back to work, he said flatly. I turned to him, shocked. What about the baby? We'll hire a nanny, he interrupted. We can't keep living like this, Maria. We need the money. I wanted to argue, to say that our son needed me, and I wasn't ready to leave him. But the look on Adam's face told me it was useless. So, with a heavy heart, I started looking for a job. Finding work with my vision problems wasn't easy, but I eventually got a job at a smaller company. The pay was much less than what I made before. When I told Adam, his reaction was predictable. That's it, he scoffed. We're paying a nanny for this? I felt tears welling up. I'm doing my best, Adam. It's hard with my eyesight. Excuses, he muttered, walking away. And so my new life began. Rushing to work every morning, feeling guilty about leaving my baby with a nanny, struggling to get through the day with my limited vision, and coming home to a resentful husband and a child who needed me. Time passed in a blur of work, childcare, and growing tension at home. Before I knew it, 3 years had gone by since my son was born. Despite everything, I loved my son deeply and found joy in watching him grow. But family gatherings were still stressful, especially because of Lauren. She would show up acting like the perfect grandmother, but it was all for show. Come to Grandma, she'd say sweetly, holding her arms out to my son. But he'd cling to me, turning away from her. Lauren's face would darken with anger. What have you been telling him about me? She'd hiss. You're turning my own grandson against me. I tried to explain, my voice tired. He just doesn't know you well, Lauren. If you visited more often. Don't you dare blame this on me, she snapped, storming off to complain to Adam. Then, on a regular Sunday morning, my world changed again. I stared at the pregnancy test in my hand, my heart racing positive. I was pregnant again. Fear washed over me. My first pregnancy had been so hard on my body, I wasn't sure I could handle another. But as I counted the weeks, I realized I was already well into my first trimester. It seemed like the decision had been made for me. With shaky hands, I called Adam at work. "What is it?" he answered, sounding impatient.
Adam, I'm pregnant.
There was a long pause. "Look, Maria, I'm busy. We'll talk later."
Just don't quit your job, okay?
"We can't afford that." Then he hung up. I sat there, holding the phone, feeling more alone than ever. Thankfully, this pregnancy was easier than my first. The morning sickness wasn't as bad, and my vision stayed stable. I kept working, determined to provide for my growing family. But as my belly grew, so did the distance between Adam and me. He spent more and more time at his mother's house, often coming home late. One evening, as I was struggling to put our son to bed while balancing my swollen belly, Adam walked in. "Hey," I said, hoping for some help. "Can you read him a story?"
I'm exhausted.
Adam glanced at us, then at his watch. "I can't. I promised Mom I'd help remove some furniture. Don't wait up." As the door closed behind him, a tear slid down my cheek. I looked at my son, his big eyes staring up at me, and then at my belly, home to another child I already loved so much. By the time I reached my 8th month of pregnancy, it was time to prepare for Thanksgiving. Guests started arriving in the afternoon. My parents came early, with my mom jumping in to help in the kitchen. Friends and relatives trickled in, filling the house with laughter and chatter. Just as I was about to serve dinner, the doorbell rang. It was Kevin, Adam's younger brother, and to everyone's surprise, he had a woman with him. "Everyone, this is Brenda," Kevin said, smiling. "My fiancée." The room went quiet for a moment before bursting into congratulations. I forced a smile, trying to ignore the small feeling of jealousy when I saw how happy Adam looked seeing his brother, so happy. Lauren arrived shortly after, her eyes widening when she saw Brenda. "Well, well," she said with approval. "Aren't you a sight for sore eyes?" Throughout dinner, Lauren couldn't stop fawning over Brenda, asking her lots of questions and hanging on her every word. I tried to focus on being a good hostess, but I kept overhearing their conversation. "So, Brenda," Lauren said loudly so everyone could hear, "Kevin tells me you're a manager at National Bank." "How impressive." Brenda nodded, looking a bit uncomfortable. "Yes, I've been there for about 6 years now." Lauren beamed. "You must be doing very well for yourself. Unlike some people who just pop out babies and create poverty," she added, glancing at me. My face burned with embarrassment. My mom, sitting next to me, tensed up, ready to defend me, but I gently placed a hand on her arm, begging her not to make a scene. Lauren wasn't finished. "Brenda here makes $230,000 a year. Now, that's the kind of daughter-in-law I've always wanted: smart, beautiful, and successful." Tears filled my eyes as I thought about all the years I'd spent supporting our family, paying the mortgage, and building a career I had been proud of. It all seemed forgotten now. Lauren stood up and said, "I think we should continue this lovely evening somewhere more fitting. Brenda, dear, why don't we go to that new restaurant downtown? My treat." Before I could even react, Lauren, Adam, Kevin, and Brenda were heading out the door. Adam didn't even look back at me as they left. The remaining guests sat awkwardly, the festive mood gone. One by one, they made their excuses and left, leaving only my parents. They offered to help, but I told them to go rest. Finally alone, I sat on the couch and let the tears flow. Hours passed as I cried, my hand resting on my swollen belly, wondering how my life had ended up like this. It was almost dawn when I heard the front door open. Adam stumbled in, smelling like alcohol and cigarettes. He didn't say a word as he went to the bedroom. With shaky hands, I picked up my phone and opened social media. There they were: Lauren, Adam, Kevin, and Brenda smiling in selfies at an expensive nightclub. The caption read, "Best Thanksgiving ever with my real family." As my due date got closer, I felt both excited and anxious. The doctors had scheduled my C-section, saying it was the safest option since it had been less than 4 years since my last one. I tried to focus on getting ready for our new baby, but I couldn't shake the feeling that something was off with Adam. One cold winter afternoon, I found him unpacking bags full of summer clothes. "What's all this?" I asked, confused. Adam shrugged, barely looking at me. Saw a good sale. Thought I'd update my wardrobe. It didn't make sense, but with the baby on my mind, I pushed my suspicions aside. I had been carefully saving money in a separate account, so I could take a couple of months off work to recover and bond with our new baby. My job had approved 3 months of unpaid leave, which was a relief. I had saved enough to cover the mortgage, bills, and even a babysitter for our 4-year-old. For once, I felt ready. 5 days before my scheduled C-section, everything fell apart. I was resting on the couch when Adam burst through the door, with Lauren right behind him. "Hurry up," Lauren snapped as Adam rushed to our bedroom. I struggled to stand up and followed them, waddling after. Adam was throwing clothes into a suitcase, the summer clothes he had bought. "Adam," I said, panic rising in my voice. "What are you doing?" He barely glanced at me. "Kevin's getting married in Bermuda. We're all going." The world seemed to spin.
What?
"But my C-section is in 5 days. Who's going to take care of our son?" Adam zipped up the suitcase and finally looked at me with cold indifference. "You'll manage. You always do." Before I could say another word, he brushed past me, and Lauren hurried him out the door. The door slammed shut, leaving me standing there in shock. Reality hit me hard. I grabbed my phone, my hands shaking, and checked our joint account. It was empty. All the money I had saved was gone. Trembling, I dialed Adam's number. He answered on the last ring. "What?" he snapped. "The money," I stammered. "All our savings." "Where is it?" There was a pause, followed by a cold laugh. "We needed it for Kevin's wedding gift." "Don't be so selfish, Maria." The call ended. A sharp pain shot through my abdomen, and I looked down in horror as a puddle formed at my feet. My water had broken. Panic surged through me. I couldn't go into labor now, not with the risk for my previous C-section. With one hand on my belly and the other clutching my phone, I called emergency services. The hospital was chaos. Doctors were shouting, machines were beeping. I woke up hours later to the soft beeping of monitors. My mom's tear-streaked face came into view. "Maria," she whispered, squeezing my hand. "You're okay. The baby's okay." Slowly, the fog cleared. I had almost died, and so had my baby, but we made it. 5 days after the emergency C-section, I was feeling surprisingly strong, both physically and emotionally. The doctors were happy with my recovery and said I could go home. Adam hadn't called once since he left for Bermuda. He didn't check if I was okay or ask about our new son. In that moment, I knew our marriage was over. I called my parents and asked if I could stay with them for a while. They immediately said yes, and were so supportive. They helped take care of both boys, giving me time to rest and recover. I started looking for divorce lawyers and gathering financial documents. A week after I left the hospital, my phone rang. It was Adam. I ignored it twice, but on the third call, I answered. "Where the hell are you? Why aren't you home?" Adam's voice was full of anger and confusion. I took a deep breath. "I'm at my parents' house, Adam, with both of our sons. I've filed for divorce." There was a brief silence, then he laughed. "Divorce? Are you serious? After everything I've done for you? Everything you've done?" I snapped, feeling my anger rise. "Like leaving me before I gave birth? Like stealing all our savings?" "Get over it," he scoffed. "I'll pay you back. In fact, I don't even want to see you again. You know why? Because I'm going to be rich." He launched into a rant about how Kevin's new wife had given him a job at the bank and how they were going to start their own financial company. He talked about how they'd be rich beyond belief. "You never believed in me, Maria," he spat. "You always shot down my ideas and held me back. Well, guess what? I'm free now. And you're just a loser who can't see real potential." The divorce moved quickly, to my surprise. Adam didn't fight me on anything. He returned the money he took from our accounts and agreed to pay alimony. When it came to the house, I had years of proof that I'd been the one paying the mortgage, so the judge awarded it to me without hesitation. The day I returned home with the boys, Adam was there, packing the last of his things. He sneered as I walked in, holding the baby, with our toddler by my side. "Enjoy this dump while you can," he said, lifting a box. "I'll be living in a mansion soon, swimming in money. You'll see what you missed out on." And with that, he walked out the door. I felt a huge weight lift off my shoulders, and the house suddenly felt bigger and brighter. A year and a half had passed since the divorce, and life had settled into a new routine for me and my boys. I had gone back to work and was balancing my career and being a mom. It wasn't always easy, but we were happy, healthy, and thriving. One ordinary Sunday, my phone buzzed with a news alert. When I read the headline, my jaw dropped. "Local banker exposed as fraud leaves family in ruins." The article revealed a shocking scandal. Brenda, Kevin's wife, had been running a con. She had convinced Adam, Kevin, and Lauren to take out huge loans to fund a fake financial company. They even mortgaged Lauren's house, pouring everything they had into this imaginary venture. But Brenda wasn't a real banker. The office she had shown them was just a rental used as part of her scam. She disappeared with millions, leaving behind fake documents and shattered dreams. To make it worse, I found out they had taken out another loan to pay for Kevin and Brenda's fancy Bermuda wedding, the same event Adam had left me for. As I kept reading, I felt a mix of emotions. Shock, confusion, and, yes, a small bit of satisfaction. The consequences were harsh. Unable to pay back the loans, they lost everything: Lauren's house, their cars, even their personal belongings, all taken by creditors. They were left with nothing but piles of debt. I heard Lauren had to take a job as a cashier just to afford a small apartment and groceries. Adam and Kevin were in the same situation, their dreams of wealth completely destroyed. I was beyond grateful I had divorced Adam when I did. My children and I were safe and not touched by the financial disaster that hit my ex-husband's family. Just when I thought I had put all of it behind me, my phone rang. Lauren's number popped up on the screen. Against my better judgment, I answered. "Maria," Lauren's voice was soft, very different from her usual bossy tone. "We need your help." She started begging, asking if they could stay with us. "The children need their father and grandmother," she insisted. "You can't leave family in trouble." I took a deep breath, memories flooding back: Thanksgiving humiliation, being left before my C-section, all the times they had treated me poorly. I kept my voice steady and said, "You didn't care about family when you left me alone, pregnant and in danger. You didn't care about family when you took all my savings. And you didn't care about family when you called me a loser." Lauren started to argue, but I cut her off. "I'm sorry you're in this mess, Lauren, but I'm not responsible for the choices you, Adam, and Kevin made. My priority is my children, and I won't let them be exposed to the chaos you've created. Please don't contact me again." I hung up and immediately blocked her number. As I put the phone down, I felt a huge weight lift off my shoulders. It was done, truly done. "Hi, Michelle. Please come to La Mexicana restaurant, the one across from the station, as soon as you can. The whole family is here waiting for you." La Mexicana restaurant? You mean that fancy Dutch place? What do you mean the whole family is waiting? Actually, I booked the place and invited everyone, even the relatives who usually can't make it. The bill will be around $51,000, and I'll be paying with your credit card. Please hurry. With that, my husband, Dennis, hung up the phone. Am I really paying $51,000? That's crazy. I just stood there in disbelief. I wasn't shocked or surprised, just really frustrated by my husband's foolishness. He really doesn't get it. Even though I had everything under control, my husband has put himself in a terrible situation, and I'm seriously thinking about letting him face the consequences. With that thought, I left the house. 15 minutes later, I arrived at La Mexicana restaurant. Dennis was waiting by himself and greeted me with a strange smile that didn't fit the fancy setting of the place. It seems the relatives are already waiting in another room, but Dennis started bragging right away. using this moment to his advantage. Michelle, as I mentioned earlier, I'll be using your credit card. It might seem harsh, but a wife's money belongs to her husband, right? It's only natural for a wife to support her husband. You don't have any objections, do you? I was speechless. I couldn't believe his foolishness. According to Dennis, 30 relatives have gathered, and he booked the most luxurious meal at $1,700 per person. La Mexicana restaurant is indeed a high-end Dutch place, known for offering delicious courses at reasonable prices, but Dennis purposely chose the most expensive one, as if making his wife suffer is his favorite hobby. Completely unaware of the trouble he's creating for himself, Dennis seemed quite pleased. In such a ridiculous situation, all I could do was laugh. A wife's money belongs to her husband? It's natural for a wife to support her husband? But I stopped that a month ago. What do you mean you stopped? You can't just quit being a wife. Divorce takes formal procedures, you know that, right? Dennis, you really don't get it. If you did, you wouldn't have booked such an expensive place. How do you plan to pay without any money? Are you planning to dine and dash? I'd never do something that stupid. I'll say it again, I'm paying with your credit card. If you don't like it, I'll make sure you really stop being my wife. At that moment, I pulled out a document and shoved it in front of him. I was ready to show just how clueless he was. I canceled that credit card a month ago. Here's the cancellation notice because I knew you wouldn't believe me. The card doesn't work anymore, so tell me with no money, what are you going to do? Are you planning to run away?
What?
I can't use your credit card? That's impossible. This cancellation paper must be fake because I took the card from your purse. If it was really canceled, why would you keep it in there? So, you're admitting you took it from my purse? I left the canceled card there because I knew you might try to steal it. You totally fell for it. Poor thing. Michelle, what's with that attitude? A wife shouldn't talk to her husband like that. Dennis sees himself as superior to me, so it must be unbearable for him to feel outsmarted by someone he thinks is beneath him. His frustration boiled over, and he raised his voice, not caring about who might hear. Even though we were in a corner of the restaurant, his loud voice caught the attention of the staff, and the place started to buzz with whispers. Seeing this, Dennis quickly forced a smile and tried to calm things down, but the murmurs continued. His face turned red with embarrassment, but compared to the trouble ahead, this was nothing. Soon my in-laws came over. It seemed Dennis's voice had reached the other relatives too. Dennis, what are you doing? Everyone is shocked, and you're disturbing the other guests. Look, people are watching. I just got a bit carried away. It's nothing serious, so don't worry. It seemed my in-laws hadn't heard the details of our conversation and looked confused, but they didn't say anything more. Dennis kept smiling, trying to smooth things over, but he was probably relieved that his parents-in-law had shown up. He always puts on a perfect husband act in front of them, especially since he works at his father's company. I also looked shocked, just like my in-laws, but Dennis gave me a quiet look, as if to say, "Don't say anything unnecessary. I won't forgive you if you do." I felt his usual pressure to intimidate and control me. I was scared and used to going along with it, but this time I couldn't take it anymore. Dennis inviting the relatives turned out to be the perfect chance to show everyone his true colors. I started talking to my in-laws about paying the bill. Dennis planned to use my credit card. He took it from my purse and made the reservation without asking me. My in-laws were surprised. That card was actually canceled a month ago, but Dennis didn't know and was going to use it anyway. He doesn't have any money, so how is he planning to pay? I explained. Wait a minute, Michelle. Are you saying Dennis took your card and was going to use it to pay today? Dennis said he'd cover the $51,000 bill himself. If what you're saying is true, was he really going to stick you with the $51,000? That's hard to believe. Could there be some misunderstanding? My in-laws were clearly shaken. This was their usual reaction, finding it hard to believe, even when it was the truth. Dennis, wanting to hide this, started talking cheerfully with a forced smile. Michelle is mistaken. I plan to treat everyone with my own money. I'll handle the payment, so don't worry. Then he went to the cashier, throwing me a creepy smile. It was obvious he didn't believe the card was canceled, even after I showed him the cancellation certificate. A while later, Dennis came back smiling. My in-laws looked relieved, thinking the payment had gone through. But I could see Dennis was tense. Inside, he was probably panicking, thinking, this is bad. The card didn't work. Of course, it didn't. I'd canceled it. He had no way to pay the $51,000 himself, and I knew what he was hiding. I gave him a cold stare and said, "Tell the truth before this gets worse." He realized what I meant, and his face changed. After thinking it over, he finally confessed. "Sorry, Dad, Mom. I couldn't make the payment. Michelle's card really was canceled." "Is that true? Were you planning to use Michelle's card to pay?" "It's all a misunderstanding," Dennis stammered. "It's true that I intended to pay today's expenses with Michelle's credit card, and I thought we had discussed this properly. I was just shocked to find out the card had already been canceled. I apologize, but I'll have to ask you to cover the cost for now. I will definitely pay you back." He mixed lies and truth to try to get out of the situation, showing remarkable nerve. Then he whispered to me, "Why did you cancel the credit card? Are you trying to embarrass me?"
Why?
"It's obvious I didn't want you using it without my permission. The real issue is that you took the card without asking, not the embarrassment it caused," I replied boldly. He looked surprised and quickly interrupted, "Quiet. Don't talk about such things here. Keeping a canceled card in your purse just causes confusion." However, it seemed my in-laws overheard our conversation and looked at Dennis sternly. "Dennis, what are you doing? What do you mean you tried using Michelle's card? Taking it from her purse without permission is unacceptable." Well, there were some circumstances," Dennis stammered, but his father wasn't convinced. I decided to explain everything in detail, aiming to reveal Dennis's true behavior to his parents. For the past year, Dennis has hardly been home. At first, I understood, thinking he was busy because your company is large, father-in-law. But then, Dennis started going out even on holidays and missing important dates like my birthday and our anniversary. He also began caring more about his appearance and started using my credit card without my permission. My parents-in-law exchanged worried looks, realizing something was wrong. I asked Dennis to spend more time with me and to stop using the card without asking, but he argued that it's natural for a wife to support her husband. He didn't listen and even threatened me with divorce, showing me a divorce form he had already signed. "Divorce?" my father-in-law exclaimed in shock. "Have you been making Michelle suffer this much?" my mother-in-law added, raising her voice. My father-in-law stared sternly at his son, the image of Dennis as a model husband shattered. Though I hoped Dennis would admit his mistakes, he quickly denied everything. "No, that's not true. What Michelle is saying is baseless. I need to pay attention to my appearance because I'm preparing to take over as president. The meetings I attend on weekends are networking events and seminars for work. What's wrong with using joint funds for work-related purposes? If I stop earning, my wife would suffer too." Dennis tried desperately to defend himself. My in-laws stayed silent, possibly seeing some logic in his explanation and feeling unsure about how to respond. But I knew the truth he was trying to hide. No matter what excuses he made, they were meaningless. "Oh, really? Can you still say it's part of your job after seeing this?" I said as I decided to show more evidence to my in-laws. I reached into my handbag and pulled out a document. It listed dates, store names, and the amount spent. "What is this?" my father-in-law asked. "This is a credit card statement," I replied. "As you can see, it shows purchases of luxury items for women. Why would you have something like that?" As I showed the document, my husband quickly tried to grab it, but I pulled it away and looked at him, demanding an explanation. "Why did you buy luxury items for women with my credit card? Cosmetics and jewelry aren't part of your job, are they? Can you explain this?" Those were gifts for the women at work," he stammered. "I was giving them as birthday presents. It's important to be liked by women in business, you know." The expense was unavoidable. His explanation was confusing, but considering his work reputation, there might have been some truth to it. Saying it was for birthday presents might sound reasonable, but for the first time, my husband couldn't convince his parents. Whatever the reason, the fact is you used Michelle's card without her permission. If it was really necessary, you should have discussed it with her. Buying luxury brands because female colleagues asked for them doesn't seem believable, my father-in-law said sternly. I'm sorry. I apologize for using my wife's card. I promise never to do it again. Please forgive me, my husband said, trying to show remorse. But my father-in-law's anger didn't go away easily. Just because you're married doesn't mean you can use her credit card without asking. And since the amount is significant, make sure you pay Michelle back for the money you spent. All right, I'll refund the money, my husband said, looking down, appearing regretful. But I wasn't convinced. I knew he was still hiding something. This was just the beginning of the real test. We all headed to the room, where the other relatives were waiting. There, I took out my smartphone from my bag and pressed play. The sudden audio surprised my husband, and he looked at me in disbelief, his face quickly turning pale. The recording was of a conversation between a man and a woman, where my husband was insulting me and the woman was saying, "Hurry up and divorce your wife." The family members around us were shocked by what they heard. "Dennis, who is this woman?" I asked. Well, my husband struggled to come up with an excuse, while his parents glared at him angrily. The relatives were also appalled by what they had just heard. Without a break from the credit card issue, my husband was now facing another crisis. There was no hiding it anymore. "You were having an affair, weren't you?" I confronted him. I stated firmly. My husband began to sweat and shouted, "That's not true. I'm not having an affair. It was wrong of me to speak badly about you, but she's just a friend, and we were just hanging out. By the way, when did you prepare this?" Eavesdropping is illegal. Even though he admitted to insulting me, he kept denying the affair and tried to shift the blame onto me. But I wasn't backing down. I laid out the facts so he couldn't escape. "Dennis, I've been watching you for a long time. The credit card history made the affair obvious. That's why, while you pretended to go to work, I installed a listening device in your car." "A listening device in the car? That's ridiculous." As I said, eavesdropping is illegal. "Do you understand that?" he responded, trying to challenge me. "If it's to catch evidence of infidelity, it's not illegal as long as it's not for stalking or similar behavior," I countered, showing I was prepared to do whatever it took to uncover the truth and protect myself. My husband fell silent, realizing he couldn't justify himself, but he still couldn't bring himself to admit the truth. Instead, he turned to his parents and the other relatives, pleading, "Everyone, please don't believe what she's saying. She's trying to trap me. I haven't been unfaithful." Sighing, I threw a document at him in front of everyone. "What's this?" he asked. "What do you think?" "It's a demand for compensation." My husband's face went pale. "This document is a compensation claim I sent to your mistress, Carol. It was confirmed through an investigation that you were having an affair with her. So I visited Carol and demanded compensation from her before coming to you." "You met Carol directly and demanded compensation? What were you thinking?" My husband was so shocked he was speechless. But he had no right to blame me when he was the one who made the mistake. "Surprised? But she told me everything. She didn't hide your wrongdoings. You were buying luxury items for her with my credit card, weren't you? That excuse about gifts for female employees was obviously a lie. It was all for her. If the evidence is complete, it's undeniable," I continued. "Carol also admitted to the affair and agreed to pay compensation because of what you did with my card. That's why I brought this compensation claim." My husband looked up at the sky, his face filled with despair. I waved the compensation claim in front of him. Unable to hide his frustration, he raised his voice. "Damn, you planned all this without me noticing. You really are a cunning wife." "A wife? I was your wife, but that's in the past. I told you a month ago that I quit. Didn't you hear? In fact, the divorce papers have already been submitted. I'm just an acquaintance now." "Did you really submit the divorce papers? Why are you surprised?" I replied. "I simply submitted the divorce papers you waved in my face to make things difficult for me. Everything was done properly. Do you have any complaints? But you shouldn't just file for divorce on your own. Divorcing without talking it over is unreasonable," he protested. "It might be unreasonable, but it doesn't change the fact that you used my credit card without permission. That's why I filed the divorce papers on my own. Now, this matter is settled." My husband was speechless and shocked. It was clear he hadn't expected me to take such action. My in-laws and other relatives, watching the exchange, began to realize that my story was true. Using Michelle's credit card without permission and having an affair to think we believed you two were happily married and you were committing such betrayals, they said, their faces grim with anger as they sternly reprimanded him. My father-in-law firmly declared, "This marks the end of our relationship as parent and child. Additionally, you are fired from the company." Fired just for an affair? This is too harsh. Think about it calmly, my husband protested. At that moment, a sharp snapping sound echoed. It was my mother-in-law who had slapped my husband hard on the cheek. Tears welled up in her eyes, a mix of sadness, pity, and disappointment. "Just an affair? You're the one who's wrong, Dennis. You planned to hurt Michelle and just run away," she said, her voice filled with anger. My husband was silenced, saying nothing, as everyone's cold eyes bore into him. His words, "just an affair," had revealed his irresponsibility. He had once loudly proclaimed that my money was his and that a wife should devote herself to her husband. Such selfish attitudes were unforgivable. My husband remained silent for a while, but his stubbornness didn't break. He slowly raised his head and declared, "It doesn't matter what happens, whether it's divorce or being fired. I'm going to be with Carol." "What did you say?" my in-laws gasped, stunned by his words. Even after being forced into a divorce, shunned by his family, and losing his job, my husband remained defiant. However, his attitude was reaching its limit. "You might not know this," I said, "but Carol has been seeing several other men as well." "That's a lie. Carol loves only me. You're just jealous and making this up," he shot back. "But this is the truth. She has relationships with multiple men, and you weren't the most important to her." "Not the most important," he repeated, shocked. "Yes, you weren't that significant to her. In fact, she paid the compensation to me quickly to avoid any trouble." "I can't believe it. I didn't think Carol was that kind of woman," he muttered, struggling to accept the reality. "The idea that Carol had real feelings for you was just a delusion. You were being used. By the way, the compensation she paid me was actually funded by another man she was seeing." "That's a lie, a lie. There's no way Carol would deceive me. We're going to get married, and nothing you do can stop us," my husband insisted, still unable to accept the truth. I calmly confronted him with the truth. "It's time for you to realize you've been abandoned. Haven't you noticed that you haven't been able to contact Carol lately? No calls or messages are getting through, right?" My husband hesitated. "Now that you mention it," he faltered, beginning to grasp the reality. "In short, you are no longer needed. You've been blocked." "I am no longer needed," he repeated, stunned. "Yes, exactly. Do you understand now? There's nothing left for you. This is what happens to someone who deceives others like you have." After hearing this, he collapsed to his knees and bowed his head. "Please, Michelle, I'm truly sorry. Please forgive me," he pleaded, finally realizing the gravity of his situation. "Please reconsider the divorce. Please stop the firing," he begged repeatedly, bowing to me and my in-laws. But everyone had already distanced themselves from him. "It's too late for apologies now," I said firmly. "I will demand the division of property and repayment of the money you wasted using my credit card. A person like you is just a nuisance to any organization. If you think you can work somewhere else, go ahead and try. It won't be worth it. Please don't leave me like this. I'm reflecting on my actions. Can I have just one more chance?" My husband continued to plead, tears in his voice, still bowing to his father. But my former father-in-law, having given up on him, ignored him and hurried out of the restaurant, followed by his wife. The relatives also started preparing to leave, showing no further interest in my husband. "Well, I'll settle the payment then," I said.
What?
"You're paying the $51,000? "Of course I will. I'll bill it later," I replied with a sweet smile as he collapsed onto his knees. That day, my retaliation made it the most painful day of his life, but the story wasn't over yet. His ordeal would continue. After the incident, I returned to my parents' house, but for the past few days, I've been getting numerous missed calls, all from my ex-husband, Dennis. The phone kept ringing nonstop, and I knew why. I had been deliberately ignoring him, but this time, I decided to answer the phone to deliver the final blow. Michelle, you finally answered.
Please help me out.
I'm truly in trouble, he begged. Sounds like a tough situation. What's going on? Are you trying to escape debt collectors?
What?
How did you know that? Did someone tell you?
No, irraplia.
I found out on my own, Dennis. You've built up a lot of debt, haven't you? Not only were you giving money to your mistress, but I also learned that you were paying your coworkers to do your job. Even though they refused, you forced them to do it by using your position as the boss's son. You used dirty tricks to keep up appearances at the company while you enjoyed your affairs in your free time, taking on debt just to get what you wanted. Such foolish actions. On the day the family gathered at that fancy restaurant, when the credit card was declined, you were supposed to pay the $51,000 yourself. But I knew you couldn't because I had already found out about your significant debt.
Dennis, this is all you're doing.
But you're capable, aren't you? Leaving your father's company shouldn't be a problem for you, right? You should be able to excel elsewhere. Well, the truth is I haven't found another job yet. All the interviews have been unsuccessful, and I'm being chased for my debts. It's really affecting me mentally. That's exactly what I expected, I said. What can you expect from someone who pushed their work onto others just to make themselves look good? Even if you find another job, it won't last.
Don't you understand that?
Dennis couldn't respond because my accusations were spot on. Unless he reflects on his actions and changes his ways, he'll keep making the same mistakes. If things continue like this, he'll only face more misery, even without my involvement. Michelle, I truly regret everything. I should have appreciated you more. I should have worked sincerely at my father's company, but I didn't. I'm really sorry. Can we start over? I'm afraid that's impossible, I replied. I believe people can change, but some actions are unforgivable. You deceived not only me but also many others who trusted you. You need to pay the price for that. And yes, you will also fully repay the property division and the money you misused. Escaping responsibility is not an option. After confirming that Dennis had gone silent again, I calmly ended the call. A few days later, I heard more about Dennis's situation from my former in-laws. As expected, he hadn't found a stable job and ended up seeking help from his family. I need help because we're family. Is it okay for your son to end up like this? He was desperately pleading for support. He ignored his family and deceived his relatives, only to ask for help when he was in trouble. How can he think such self-centered behavior is acceptable? His thinking has always been selfish, focused only on himself. The reason Dennis lived so comfortably up until now was because of the help and support from those around him. But I never once heard a word of gratitude from him. If only I had seen his true nature before getting married. I would have never married him. I deeply regret going through everything alone without talking to anyone. If I had spoken to my in-laws or other relatives sooner, maybe my future would have turned out completely different. From now on, I will be more honest with myself, aiming to become stronger and more determined. It's time to say goodbye to the weaker version of myself and step forward with confidence into a new beginning. I remember the day everything changed like it was yesterday. I was only 10 years old, sitting at the kitchen table when Mom and Dad sat down with serious faces. I had never seen them look like that before. Dad reached for my hand, his own shaking a little. "Helen, sweetheart," he said in a quiet voice. "I need to tell you something important. That was the day we found out about the cancer." I didn't fully understand what it meant, but I knew our lives were about to change. For the next 3 years, our home was always full of doctors, family, and visitors. I watched my dad, who used to be so strong, grow weaker each day. Mom tried to act like everything was normal, but nothing was normal anymore. She forced smiles during the day, but at night, I could hear her crying in their bedroom. I wanted to go in and comfort her, but I didn't know what to say. When Dad passed away, I was 12. The funeral was a blur. Black clothes, quiet voices, and people whispering. Mom held my hand so tightly that it hurt, but I didn't mind. I thought we would get through it together. But I was wrong. A week after the funeral, Mom sat me down again. This time, it was just the two of us. Helen, I've been talking to your grandmother, she said, not looking me in the eye. I think it would be best if you stayed with her for a little while just until I can figure things out. But why can't I stay with you? Asked in a small voice. I need some time alone, honey. I need to process everything and figure out what to do next. She tucked a strand of hair behind my ear, but it didn't feel the same as before. It will only be for a few months. The next day, Grandma Victoria, Dad's mom, came to pick me up. She didn't say much on the drive, but I could see her hands gripping the steering wheel tightly. When we reached her small one-story house, she helped me carry my bags to the guest room. For the next few months, Mom would call me every few weeks. Our conversations were always the same. When can I come home, Mom? Just be patient, sweetie. A little longer. But I miss you. I miss you too, but this is better for now. You understand, right? I didn't understand, and neither did Grandma. She never said it out loud, but I could tell. Whenever Mom called, Grandma would press her lips together and start making noise in the kitchen, banging pots and pans louder than she needed to. Still, Grandma made sure I never felt unwanted. She cooked my favorite meals, helped me with my homework, and told me stories about Dad when he was little. But no matter how nice it was at Grandma's, it wasn't home. I kept waiting for Mom to come back, to want me again. After 7 months at Grandma's, Mom finally came. I was doing homework at the kitchen table when I heard a car outside. Looking through the window, I saw Mom step out of a blue car I didn't recognize. A man I had never seen before stayed in the driver's seat. Helen. Mom burst through the door, more excited than I had seen her since Dad died. Her hair was styled, her makeup was fresh, and she was wearing a new dress. I have wonderful news. Grandma walked in from the living room, crossing her arms. Diane, this is unexpected. Helen, I want you to meet someone special. Mom was practically bouncing. He's waiting in the car. He's a little shy, but she grabbed my hands. Helen, honey, I'm getting married. I blinked at her. His name is Austin, and he's absolutely wonderful. He's a successful businessman, and he has 3 daughters about your age. You'll have sisters. Isn't that exciting? I looked at Grandma. Her face was frozen, unreadable. Diane, Grandma said carefully. Don't you think this is a bit sudden? Oh, Victoria, when you meet him, you'll understand. He's perfect for us. Helen, he's going to be such a great stepfather to you. His daughters, Kelly and Evelyn, are 9 and 10. Their mother passed away 4 years ago, and Austin has raised them alone. We're going to be one big, happy family. I glanced out the window at the man in the car. He was staring straight ahead, not even looking at the house. Come on, Helen, Mom said, already gathering my things. Let's go home. The girls are waiting to meet you. The car ride was filled with Mom talking about Austin, the wedding, and how perfect everything would be. When we pulled up to our house, the one she and Dad had bought together, 3 girls were sitting on the front steps. They looked like matching dolls with their blonde hair and pink dresses. Girls, Mom called, waving. Come meet Helen. I stepped forward, trying to smile. Hi, We know who you are, the taller girl, Kelly, interrupted. Her voice was sweet, but her eyes were cold. Our dad told us all about you. Yeah, Evelyn, the younger one, added. But just so you know, he's not going to be your dad. He's our dad. And your mom is going to be our new mom, Kelly said with a fake smile. We're going to be one big, happy family. Right, Diane? Of course, sweetie, Mom said, smiling, not noticing the tension. For months later, I stood in front of a mirror, wearing a plain blue dress. Kelly and Evelyn spun around in matching pink bridesmaid gowns, giggling. The wedding was about to start, but I could still hear their screams from earlier. We won't wear the same dress as her, they had shouted when Mom suggested we match. She's not even really part of the family. In the official wedding photos, I was barely visible. Kelly and Evelyn had made sure to stand in front of me, blocking me out. Looking at those pictures later, I realized this wasn't the happy family Mom had promised. Life in our new home quickly became routine. Austin wasn't mean, but he acted like I wasn't there. Every evening, he'd come home, hug Kelly and Evelyn, kiss Mom, and walk right past me like I was invisible. Mom, eager to please her new husband, gave all her attention to his daughters. She barely noticed me. That first Christmas after the wedding, I finally understood my place. Kelly and Evelyn got new iPads and fancy clothes. I got a basic phone and some sweaters from a discount store. Thank God for Grandma Victoria. She never forgot me. On my 14th birthday, she gave me a beautiful silver locket with Dad's picture inside. At dinner, Kelly noticed it around my neck. Her eyes lit up. That's so pretty.
You should share it with me.
That's what sisters do. When I refused, I found the chain mysteriously broken the next day. Another time, Grandma sent me a special set of art supplies because I loved drawing, just like Dad did. A week later, I found my sketchbook soaked in water and my expensive pencils snapped in half. When I confronted Evelyn, she just smiled.
Prove it was me, she said sweetly.
Mom never even noticed. I tried showing Mom the ruined art supplies. Look what they did, I said, holding up my damaged sketchbook and broken pencils. Mom sighed. Helen, stop being so dramatic. You probably left them out in the rain yourself. Stop blaming your sisters for everything. I knew she wouldn't believe me. Then, when I turned 16, Mom dropped another big surprise. She was pregnant. The whole house filled with excitement. Everyone was happy, except me. Austin's daughters squealed about having a baby brother or sister, but I stayed quiet. I already knew what this meant. When the baby, a boy named Brian, was born in the spring, things only got worse. For weeks after Mom came home from the hospital, they called a family meeting in the living room. Mom shifted uncomfortably. Now that Brian is here, we need to make some changes to the sleeping arrangements. Austin cleared his throat. We think it would be best if you moved in with Kelly and Evelyn. Brian needs his own room. No, the words slipped out before I could stop it. I'm not sharing a room with them. This is my room. This is my father's house. The room went silent. What did you just say? Mom whispered. I took a deep breath. Dad bought this house.
He paid for it.
You and your daughters moved in, and now you want to take my room away? Austin's face turned red. Kelly and Evelyn stared at me, for once completely silent. Mom's voice shook. How can you be so selfish after everything we've done for you? Tears filled her eyes. Austin has been nothing but good to you, and this is how you treat us. Good to me? I let out a small laugh, but there was no humor in it. He doesn't even look at me. After that, the house felt more like a prison. Nobody spoke to me at meals. Mom and Austin acted like I wasn't there. Even Kelly and Evelyn didn't bother teasing me anymore. They just ignored me. The silence was worse than their insults. After 4 days of this, I couldn't take it anymore. I picked up my phone and called the one person who had never let me down. When Grandma's car pulled into the driveway, I saw Mom and Austin watching from the kitchen window as I walked outside. I walked out with my backpack. They didn't try to stop me. If anything, they looked relieved. Living with Grandma felt like finally being able to breathe after years of holding my breath. We quickly fell into a routine, having breakfast together every morning, doing my homework at the kitchen table while she baked, and having long talks about Dad and what he was like when he was my age. 3 months passed quickly. Then one morning, Grandma sat me down, her face serious. Helen, I need to tell you something, she said, taking my hands. I've been talking to your mother. She's willing to give up her parental rights. And I want to adopt you. Officially. I stared at her, hardly believing what I was hearing. Really? Really, she nodded. It's your choice, of course, but I want you to know that this has always been your home. And I would be honored to be your legal guardian. Tears filled my eyes as I hugged her.
Yes. Please, yes.
The legal process was easier than I expected. Mom signed the papers without hesitation. The only thing left was to get the rest of my belongings from the house. When I went back, no one was home. All my things were packed in dusty boxes in the garage. My old room had been turned into a nursery for Brian, painted blue with clouds on the ceiling. I loaded my boxes into Grandma's car, without saying goodbye. They hadn't bothered to say goodbye to me, after all. High school was different after that. Kelly and Evelyn still went to the same school, but we lived in separate worlds. We passed each other in the hallways without a glance, like strangers. Sometimes, I'd hear them laughing with their friends, talking about family vacations or weekend plans. But it felt like listening to a radio playing in another room, distant, disconnected, not part of my life anymore. I threw myself into my studies, determined to make something of myself. Grandma supported me every step of the way, helping with college applications and encouraging me to aim high. The day my acceptance letter arrived from State University, along with a partial scholarship, Grandma was more excited than I had ever seen her. That evening, she sat me down and said, "I have something to tell you. I've been saving for your college fund since the day your father died. I wanted to make sure you had options." The amount she had saved left me speechless. With the scholarship covering most of my tuition, we decided together to save most of the money for my future. I knew I would need the money one day for grad school or maybe to start my own life after college. Those first few years of college changed me. I called Grandma every Monday, visited during the holidays, and finally felt like I was building my own future. My mother, Austin, and their perfect little family became distant memories, like characters in a book I had read long ago. Then, during my last semester of senior year, I got the call. "Helen." Grandma's voice was weaker than I had ever heard it. "The doctors found something." After that, I went home every weekend. Each time, Grandma looked a little frilier, a little more tired. But she never lost her spirit. "Don't you dare skip any classes for me," she'd insist, even as the hospital machines beeped around her. "I didn't save all that money for your education, just for you to play nurse to an old woman." When graduation day came, Grandma was too weak to attend. The nurses helped prop her up in her hospital bed, and we set up her smartphone so she could watch the live stream. As I walked across the stage to get my diploma, I looked straight into the camera and blew her a kiss. Later, she told me she cried through the whole ceremony. After graduation, I went straight to the hospital. For the next week, I barely left her side. We talked about everything and nothing. Memories of Dad, stories from her childhood, and her hopes for my future. Then, one quiet morning, as I held her hand, she slipped away peacefully in her sleep. Planning the funeral didn't feel real. I was picking out flowers and making arrangements in the same house where Grandma and I had shared breakfast just weeks before. Then, on the day of the service, I saw them. My mother, Austin, Kelly, Evelyn, and a young boy I barely recognized as my half-brother, Brian, walked into the funeral home. 8 years had changed them. Kelly and Evelyn were now grown women, and Brian, who I had last seen as a baby, was now a grade schooler in a small black suit. The ceremony passed in a blur. I stood alone by the casket, accepting condolences from distant relatives and Grandma's friends. Then, suddenly, Mom was in front of me. "Helen," she said softly, her eyes red from crying. "I'm so sorry for your loss." Victoria, she was a wonderful woman. I nodded, not trusting myself to speak. Mom twisted her hands nervously.
"Listen," she said.
"I know it's been a long time, but would you come to dinner with us? All of us? We want to try to make things right." I looked at her face, now lined with age and sadness. There were so many things we had never said to each other. "I'll think about it," I finally replied. A week later, after meeting with Grandma's lawyer, I learned she had left me everything. The house, her savings, all of it. That's when I made my decision. Maybe it was time to face the past. When I arrived at the house I had grown up in, it looked smaller than I remembered. The paint was faded, the garden overgrown. Inside, Austin, Kelly, Evelyn, and Brian were sitting at the dining room table, waiting. The silence was awkward, broken only by the sound of silverware clinking against plates. "So," Mom said, forcing a bright tone into her voice, "what are your plans now that you've graduated?" I took a slow sip of water before answering. "I'm staying in town, actually. I'm going to live in Grandma's house." For a moment, I saw a flicker of satisfaction in Mom's eyes, so quick I almost missed it. Something about that look made me uneasy, though I wasn't sure why. My degree in business administration got me a job as a junior executive at Logan and Associates. The salary was more than I ever imagined making straight out of college. And since I didn't have to pay rent, thanks to Grandma's house, I was able to save a lot of my income. Mom started dropping by often, sometimes with fresh-baked cookies, sometimes with a casserole. At first, our conversations felt awkward, filled with long pauses and careful words. But over time, she began opening up. The heating bill was so high this month, she'd sigh. Brian's growing so fast. He needs new shoes again. The first time I offered to help, it was almost automatic. Mom had been talking about a leaky faucet they couldn't afford to fix. I have some extra cash, I said, pulling out $300. Here, get it fixed. The way her face lit up made something warm stir in my chest. After that, it became normal, small amounts here and there for whatever problem they had that week. Then, to my surprise, Kelly and Evelyn started coming around too. They told me about their jobs. Kelly worked as a receptionist, Evelyn in retail, and how hard it was to make ends meet. It felt strange hearing them talk without their usual attitude. When Mom mentioned that Brian needed a laptop for school, I didn't even hesitate. The smile on his face when I gave it to him made all the past feel distant and unimportant. "You're the best big sister ever," he said, hugging me. It was our first real hug. The real breakthrough came when I had a business trip to Albany. Kelly and Evelyn asked if they could come along. At first, I wasn't sure about taking Kelly and Evelyn to Albany, but their excitement was contagious. "We've never been anywhere," Evelyn admitted. "Dad always said we couldn't afford it." I booked them economy tickets and found a decent hotel in Hartford. Watching them experience the city for the first time felt like seeing it through new eyes. They took pictures of everything, gasped at the tall buildings, and couldn't stop talking about how amazing it all was. During dinner at a small French restaurant in Lower Manhattan, Kelly raised her glass.
"To family," she said.
For the first time, that word didn't feel wrong. When we got home, our regular dinners became a tradition. Mom, Kelly, and Evelyn always chose budget-friendly restaurants and never ordered anything expensive. They seemed truly thankful for everything, no matter how small. Then one Thursday afternoon, Mom called me while I was at work. "Hi, sweetie," she said warmly. "How are you doing?" We talked about everyday things, Brian's school, Kelly's new haircut, family gossip. Just as we were about to say goodbye, she added, "Oh, by the way, honey, I hate to ask, but could you send me $300? The car needs some minor repairs." "Sure, Mom. I'll send it right now." "You're an angel, Helen. I love you so much." I was about to hang up when I realized the call hadn't ended. I heard rustling on the other end, then voices growing clearer. Mom must have thought she had pressed the end button. Did she fall for it? That was Kelly's voice, followed by a sharp, mocking laugh I hadn't heard since high school. "Of course she did," Mom said, her voice sounding completely different, cold, full of disgust. "She always does. Little Miss successful with her fancy job and her inherited house. God, I'm so tired of pretending to like her." Evelyn groaned. "Did you see what she was wearing at dinner last week? That awful blazer? She thinks she's better than us just because she went to college." They all laughed. Mom, Kelly, Evelyn. Then, I heard Austin's voice join in. "You're doing great, honey," he told Mom. "Keep it small for now. We don't want to scare her off." I know, Mom replied. "We have to be smart. Small amounts here and there. Build her trust. Once she completely lets her guard down, then we can start asking for more. She's loaded now with the house, the savings, her salary. We just need to make sure she spends it on us instead of herself." "It's not fair," Kelly whined. "Why should she have all that money? We deserve it more than she does." "Of course you do, sweetheart," Mom said. "You and Evelyn are twice the daughters she ever was. Don't worry, we'll get what's ours. She's too stupid to see what's really going on. Always was, just like her father." I ended the call with a single tap, but their laughter kept ringing in my ears. The family I thought I had finally found had never been real. It was all just an act, and I had been playing the fool, giving them everything while they took advantage of me. The next morning, Mom's number popped up on my phone. "Helen, honey," she said sweetly, "we're having a special family dinner tonight. You'll come, won't you?" I could hear the fake warmth in her voice now, the careful way she spoke. Before, I had been too desperate to notice it. "Sure, Mom," I said. "What time?" 7 o'clock. "Everyone will be there." When I arrived at the house, they were all waiting. Mom had made my favorite lasagna. Kelly and Evelyn were dressed up, playing their parts perfectly. Even Brian seemed extra affectionate, probably coached to be on his best behavior. "Helen." Mom rushed to hug me. "You look tired, sweetie. Work keeping you busy?" I hugged her back, but it felt empty. I noticed the quick glances she exchanged with Austin. Throughout dinner, they kept up the act, asking about my job, laughing at each other's jokes, pretending to be the perfect family. But this time, I saw it for what it was. A performance. Every smile was fake. Every word was planned. Finally, as we finished dessert, Mom cleared her throat. "Helen, honey, we actually wanted to talk to you about something important." She reached for Austin's hand, their usual move when they had something big to ask. "The house," she continued. "Well, we've had some problems. The foundation needs urgent repairs. We got some estimates," Austin added, trying to sound fatherly. "It's going to cost about $15,000. Mom leaned forward, her eyes wide and hopeful. "We hate to ask, but since you're doing so well..." I smiled. Mom's face lit up, thinking she had won. "No." The word hit the room like a stone dropped in still water.
"What?"
Mom's smile faded. "I said no," I repeated. "Not $15,000. Not $15. Not another cent." Kelly and Evelyn exchanged confused looks. Austin sat up straighter. "But honey," Mom started, "we really need..." "You forgot to hang up the phone yesterday, Mom." My voice was calm, almost casual. Her face went pale. Kelly and Evelyn froze. Even Brian, who probably didn't understand what was happening, stopped eating his cake. "I heard everything," I continued. "How tired you are of pretending to like me. How you've been playing me for money. How you think I'm stupid, just like my father." I turned to Kelly and Evelyn. "And how you think you deserve my money more than I do." "I do?" "We were just joking," Evelyn blurted out. "It wasn't serious." "Helen, sweetie." Mom reached for my hand. I pulled away. "You're misunderstanding," she insisted. "The only thing I misunderstood," I said, standing up from the table, "was thinking you had changed." I looked at them. Mom, Austin, Kelly, and Evelyn. "But you know what? I should thank you. You finally showed me who you really are. Now I can stop wasting my time trying to build a relationship with people who only see me as an ATM." I walked out of that house for the last time, ignoring their voices calling after me. But of course, they didn't give up easily. The calls started that same night. First Mom, then Austin, then Kelly and Evelyn. Voicemails,
Texts,
emails, all begging for forgiveness, saying it was just a joke, that I was overreacting. When I blocked their numbers, they started showing up at my house, knocking on my door at all hours. I knew I needed a clean break. The next morning, I walked into my boss's office. "Megan, remember when you mentioned expanding the Albany office?" 3 weeks later, I had my transfer approval in hand. I listed Grandma's house with a realtor, and it sold fast. The market was good, and it was in a prime location. I found a beautiful apartment on Hartford's Long Island City. Big windows. A view of the park. The kind of place that would have made Grandma smile. Sometimes on quiet evenings I think about them, Mom, Austin, Kelly, Evelyn, and little Brian. I hope Brian grows up to be different from them. But I don't regret my decision. I learned that family isn't about blood or legal papers. It's about love. Real love. Not the kind that comes with a price tag.